G'day, welcome to another episode of Frothy Friday. Of course, it's Friday. Feels like it's coming around real quick. Feel like I've over-frothed this week. Maybe I've gone a bit too hard on the conversations. Too many yarns. That's okay. You live, you learn. This morning I was on a yarn with this podcast that I'm infatuated with called The Emerald. Highly recommend you check it out. To the point where I don't really listen to any other podcasts anymore. And the call I was on is think about who's your favorite podcaster. And yeah, just sit with that for a moment. And then think about how cool it would be if you were able to join them in a yarn dialogue about their work and what they were talking about on their podcasts. And I know a lot of podcasters do this, but for me, it's like, there was only probably like 15 or 20 people on the call and all super interesting, all contributing. And the really crazy thing about this call was that we were talking about this book, Sand Talk, because the host, Josh, he'd interviewed Tyson Young-Porter, who wrote this book, and the book was sent by another Aussie lady. Josh is in the US, Tyson's in Melbourne, and Maya, this lady, is in Melbourne. She sent Sand Talk to Josh. And so we were yarning about this book in particular, which was really cool. And so it was a good 2 hours. And also, the other weird thing that occurred was I sent this book to one of my mentors, Jamie Will. And then he wrote this book. And Josh, for the first time on any of these calls, started referencing Jamie. So there was this kind of like swirling cosmic frothosauruses within my realm, all being spoken about on this one call. And I was sitting back just going, well, this is pretty cool. This is pretty radical. If you checked out my Frothy Friday a few weeks ago, or maybe last week, I've lost track of time. It's all just dilating, isn't it? It's all going weird. I mentioned the finding the frothers process, and Jamie was a part of that. Tyson's been in that. Josh is definitely, after listening to his podcast, was like, got to join the membership, bring that frother in closer. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen next? But yeah, we were talking about the book in particular, and Tyson has this awesome system, which is, and I've lost the page, good one. You can see these images. And then the different types of mind. And this isn't like anything in particular, like from any particular lineage, just from his kind of thinking, and which is magical, and that's why this book is friggin' phenomenal. Actually, Jamie's first book, Stealing Fire, is the book I've bought for the most people. And then this book trumped that, and I think collectively with our reunion crew, I think I've purchased, I don't know, somewhere around 40 or 50 copies of this to send out. That's how good it is. The quote from my dear friend Sarah is that it changed her DNA, and I've heard multiple people say that. Have a read, see what happens. I just dropped a copy off at the fella whose property I live on. So more yarns to be had for me about this book. How good. And also with Tyson as well. I send him a couple of cheeky messages through the old LinkedIn every now and then, and he's a frother and he gets back to me. So that's cool. Isn't that cool? People who you like are just mind-blowing. That's the thing. Like, I'm not special. It just takes, having something interesting to say to someone. It's not about being their fan. It's not like, oh, I fucking love you. Oh my God, is this like that book? Is this amazing? It's about going like, oh, you know what happened after I read your book? Or you know what that reminds me of? Or blah, 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 blah. Because you're continuing the yarn. You're continuing dialogue. People who write amazing things and who don't have their heads up their ass usually like to hear about how they're implemented in the real world. Case in point, I got to talk with Josh about my Frothy Friday a couple of weeks ago with my mate Darren, and how his daughter sees the world as animate. She said, good night, Dad, good night, Mum, good night, book. Not this book, but a book. And Josh was like, oh, man, it's really cool to hear my work, which he spends so much time on, rippling out into, all the way over to Australia, vice versa. I guess with the internet, we're all close. And so our yarn this morning was about how do we use these different minds, and I'm not going to go through them all, but one of them is like story mind, which is about narrative and knowledge transmission, which is really cool. Another one I'll mention is like ancestor mind, which some of you guys might know as flow states, or as Josh would call trance states, and super froth. Pattern mind as well is one of them, which is all about recognizing patterns. And we're really talking about kinship mind as well, as like, everything happens in partnerships, right? And the way Tyson describes it is you can take the four, and there's dreaming mind, which is, a little bit more in-depth, interesting. What does he say? Using metaphors to work with knowledge. Pretty sick. People who tell good stories, they got good fucking metaphors. And Tyson says that you can put all these on your fingers, and you can touch them together, and you can go, well, what happens when this happens? What happens when this happens? And he even says, what happens when this happens? And that was our inquiry this morning. And I was talking, or more so thinking about this, because before I got on that call, I was finishing off a workshop for this company called Mervac. And basically what's happened is, if you haven't noticed, if you work in corporate, maybe you're seeing this, or if you work in business, people are sick of the standard workshops. So that's why play shops and stuff are coming through. People are hiring me to do fun shit like deliver workshops called Loving the Land, the Science of Biomimicry. That was what the workshop I was writing about. And so I delivered that this morning. And then, of course, as the universe delivers, we'll be talking about this and how things like knowledge transmission, story mind, and kinship can all come together so we can recognize the patterns. And my example is always going down to the river by where I live and standing or sitting with my partner Jackie every single morning in the same spot and doing the same breathwork practice and the same dialogue, which is asking each other these questions called GET, which is what are you grateful for, what are you excited for today, and what are you taking action on? Really simple. And noticing the patterns. So I guess Jackie and I are a kinship. Then we have kinship with the land that we stand on. There's a patch, and because it's cold in the morning and there's sort of like icy frost, it's a little bit warmer. So you have to, fire up your chi by getting down and grounding into the earth. And then we get to see all these things occurring, all these patterns, all the same animals coming back but doing slightly different things. And it's magical. And when you do it more often than not, more stuff comes alive for you. That animism becomes more true and felt sense of that. Oh, yeah, magical. And you find those flow states or ancestral mind. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's priming for a powerful day, really, through ritual and through deep connection. And I realize I've just kind of spoken predominantly about lots of radical dudes. But the other thing that's been top of mind and what I've been really just fascinated by this week is I'm working on a piece of technology, which is way more than technology. And it comes back to dialogue and yarns, of course, called Positive Prime, with this wonderful founder, Kim Serafini. She lives up on the sunny coast. Amazing energy, like just beaming, kind of the froth. She's like a peak frother or a turbo frother, as I call. And we've been having yarns. We've been sort of kicking off a little bit of a podcast with some of the members who use this technology. And the technology, in simple terms, is you watch a video and it's a sort of audio-visual experience, and images flash up that are positive and affirmations flash up that are positive, and the music is all positive. And basically you sit there and it takes as little as 3 minutes and you can go from sort of flat to frothing. And the amazing thing is the yarns that we've been having with people like Vary, and I can share a link with anyone who is interested, who's a school teacher, like my partner Jackie, so she's frothing on this too, and how this technology is being implemented in schools. And because kids, it's kind of horrible to hear some of the stories about kids not being fed before they get to school, and just horrible things happening to them in the morning. I don't need to tell the stories, but it's having technologies and things like that and extra tools for the teachers are really a way to help all the kids within these classrooms sort of drop in and settle in, and it's a technology that has been working with adults for quite a while, but this yarn that we had was just so profound, just to hear about what the potential of this technology could be. And then earlier this week, we spoke with another fella named Aaron, who's actually, he is, I can't remember the name of what he's got, but it was a hereditary disease, I don't know, disease or hereditary, something that is making his eyesight decline. And so he competes he's competed as a rower, and now he competes as a triathlete. And he uses positive prime sessions, even though his eyes aren't sort of, he can't see the same way that we do. He's feeling this resonant energy of this technology, which is wild, through the music and through the intentions that he sets with it, that create this energy that allows him to beat his PBs and do these wild things. And it's kind of magic. It is magic. To be involved with it and to be witnessing all these people in different forms of lives. That's not the right words. Can you tell I've been over frothed? In different areas of expertise and life and different challenges, finding their own way to utilize a piece of technology that's created here by powerhouse women in Australia. And so, that's kind of been lifting my froth. And I think that's probably it. I'm glad I rounded that out with some powerhouse women and radness. So shout out to all those who are frothy females doing all the radness. Now I'm just probably mumbling and not making any points, so I'll probably round it up there. And much love to everyone, and I hope you have a frothy weekend. If you're doing too many Zooms, try and give yourself a window between the Zooms. That's something that I like to do, and I've discussed this with friends this week as well, and I didn't do that so well this morning. On-ramps and off-ramps, people, it's the way to froth. Much love. Have a good one. You!